Welcome to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast with your host, Michelle Cacall. As always, it is my honor and my pleasure to be able to come on here and share some tips and some tools with you that I know would assist you in becoming a better version of yourselves. Now, today is the continuation of what we had the honor of sharing last week. But today, we have the visionary here with us of this project. This project we talked about was Educators Rise Voices of Change, the DEI Impact Anthology, Bridging the Gaps. The visionary is here today. Her name is Dr. Heather Robinson, and she brought some more individuals that played a major part in this project. Coach Key, Philip Lyde, Kira Longmire, and Martisha Smith. Dr. Heather Robinson, this is your baby. This is your project. And we had the honor of talking, I think like 2 years ago, on some other wonderful things that you were doing. And so once again, you did not fail me. You brought something that is very special. And I think it's very special based upon what is going on right now in our society, in our country, right? DEI. And so what I learned last week was we emphasize how when everybody talk about DEI, they mostly talk about the workplace, right? They're talking about, you're able to get a job based upon your race or your gender, right? But I have yet to hear your perspective, which is how this impacts our children, how this impacts the classroom, how this impacts our community. And I thought once I've heard the impact from those who are professionals, those who are an expert in their fields, I was blown away. And I was very honored to be able to be a part in releasing this information. I have yet to hear anyone on any media platform talk about what this is going to do to the young people, those who are in need that won't receive necessarily those services anymore because they will be no longer funding for these services that they have been receiving. So we're just going to keep that going, that conversation, and talk about, first of all, the timing is crazy. Like I'm just, shocked that this was like perfect because this book is coming out in April. Am I correct, Dr. Heather Robinson? It's coming
Yes,
out
April 25th.
April the 25th. And so the timing couldn't be more perfect. Although we know things have been said that this is done, we know that it's not probably going to work out the way that everybody think that it could just be scrapped. So it is very important. I love that your perspective is showing how important this is. So when I was looking at the title of the book, Heather, it said the phrase bridging the gaps. When we're talking about DEI, it said bridging the gaps. Explain to me, if you can, what did you mean about bridging the gaps?
So if I go back to my childhood,
Okay.
I realized even as a teacher in the field for 20 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
someone that's an entrepreneur, I realized working with children, working alongside parents that have children and watching their interactions with children, one thing that's very clear to me is that the gaps are not in this box that society is trying to put it in. The gaps are not just black and white. The gaps are deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked a lot with Philip. I have 5 IEPs coming up.
Okay.
And so when I think about gaps, particularly as a student first, and then in turn as a child who had advocates, and now as a teacher and an advocate
Mm-hmm.
and a DEI consultant,
Mm-hmm.
it really put into perspective that our gaps are not just race, they're also gender,
Mm-hmm.
they're also learning styles,
Right.
teaching styles,
Right.
resources, and some things are based off of where you're located,
Yes.
and other things are mindset.
Yes.
And we don't delve into those things. For instance, as a student that had an IEP versus being a teacher that sits in IEP meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our IEP specialists are, I hate to say this, but are teachers that are certified in special education, people that are making these decisions, and people that are policyholders, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very important role. We're at
Mm-hmm.
a very pivotal time. And if we don't take a step back and really evaluate, this is not just a number, it's deeper than that. This is not just this child is a Black male,
Right.
it's deeper than that. This is not just this child is a Hispanic female where English is not spoken in their home.
Right.
It's more to it than that, but that is included. And that's where that inclusivity comes in. So for me, bridging the gaps
Mm-hmm.
means just that. It's like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
If you put puzzle pieces together and you're missing one piece to the puzzle, there's a gap. And you can't do anything with that gap without that one little puzzle piece. So it takes all of those components to bridge these gaps or the specific gap, which is DEI.
So, right. So what you're saying is one perspective to look at DEI is it's that bridge. It's that bridge, right? That separates if we're looking at just the classroom, looking at whatever that child might, have a shortcoming in for whatever reason, the resources might not be there. There's this bridge, it's called DEI, that will afford them the same opportunities and resources that they normally probably wouldn't receive based on whatever reason it is. So that's a good another perspective, seeing it as this bridge. Wonderful. Coach Key, can you explain to me why you felt it was important for you to participate in this project?
Well, well, aside from Heather being, oh, sorry, my alarm went off. Aside from Heather being one of my business partners,
Okay.
of course, I wanted to be included in the conversation. I do work with children and adults, but in a little bit different setting.
Okay.
Um, so I felt like I needed to join the conversation because of what I represent to my children. So
Okay.
I have a nonprofit where
Mm-hmm.
I help children develop wraparound, what we call them is wraparound services. So all the things that they took out of schools, we now do them in the program. So when it comes to, of course, DEI education, teaching them how to build actual businesses legally so
Mm-hmm.
that they can actually start businesses at ages 7, 8, 9, 10, teaching their parents how to do the same thing. Um, Reading, writing, tutoring, anything that you can really think of, trade skills, all of those things.
Right.
And I feel, even though I am a Black woman, so that's
Mm-hmm.
two strikes against me, um, I can't really just, at age 37, I can't just really sit on that. I have to be able to go and help each child so that they don't have to experience life the way that I experienced it. All of the minorities, not just the ones that look like me, because they could be the ones that make the actual difference.
Mm-hmm.
And because I know that I was a part of that change in that conversation, and I was one of the people who inspired them to do something different,
Mm-hmm.
that fills my heart. So I joined the project because, of course, I did want to definitely expand my resume in regards to different things.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of coming to the forefront. I'm usually a background person.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course just supporting Heather, supporting myself, and then being a inspiration to my children, because if I bring them back this literary works,
Mm-hmm.
remember when you bring a book to a kid, they automatically assume it's much bigger than what it is, even if it's just something that you typed up at home. They
Right.
feel like it's important because they're taught that books are important.
Right.
So it inspires them to do the same.
Right. So it was important for you not only because your relationship with Heather, but you want to show your children, your own personal children as well, right? And those that you work with as well, the importance of the DEI project and how important that is, and in our because Are you an educator as well? Because everybody here pretty much has been educators. Is that your background as well, an educator?
No, my background is business. So I'm a
Okay.
business coach. So helping anyone who wants to
Mhm.
learn how to build brand and market their own businesses.
Okay.
So that's my background. So by trade, no, I'm not a teacher.
Okay.
Well, sorry, by trade, I am a business coach who is a teacher,
Yeah.
but I am not in the classroom, so to speak. My
Okay.
classroom exists wherever I take my laptop.
Okay. But look, you're still teaching. You're still teaching.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Because
I can't say I'm oh, I teach at this school. I don't.
I know, right? You're sitting amongst all the pristine people here. So am I. I'm with you,
Right.
coach. We're sitting amongst all the look at Heather's face. Okay. What about you, Philip? Why was it important for you to participate in this project? Why was that important for you? Like, when you thought about it or when it was proposed to you, why do you say, I have to get into this? This is important.
Couple of key reasons.
Okay.
And thank you for asking that question. The first one is there are not enough men in education. When you
All the
look at
heads are
when you,
nodding. All the heads are nodding
when,
with you.
when when you look at certain fields or certain sectors such as
Yeah.
mental health, human services, education, most men are either underqualified or most men don't have a voice in their particular field or lane. And with my background, one of the things I wanted to do is make part of that voice known.
Mhm.
Um, Talking to Dr. Robinson, we had a very deep conversation in regards to what it looks like because my background is exceptional children, special ed populations.
Okay.
And that's another thing.
Yeah.
We're underrepresented there too.
Yeah.
Education is heavily female dominated,
Yeah.
and that's very important. But I've always come under the belief, especially the older I get,
Mhm.
that you need the duality of both a male and a female in the classroom to
Mhm.
show the balance of the relationship
Yeah.
for these kids. Most of the kids that we serve are either underdiagnosed, misdiagnosed, or they're being improperly categorized
Yeah.
just to fill numbers.
Mhm.
When you look at the numbers, the kids that I work with eventually either stay stuck in the system
Mhm.
or they go straight through what we call the school to prison pipeline system. And if I can make just a small change, help
Mhm.
somebody, then I would love to do that. You know, I
Yeah.
don't, I used to tell my students when I was in the classroom, because I recently stepped out of the classroom.
Mhm.
I used to tell them, you can't be a statistic or a stereotype.
Right.
So we want to dismantle a lot of those misnomers, even what a lot of people's understanding of what DEI is,
Yeah.
simply because of the fact that most people's understanding comes through sound bites.
Yeah.
It might be through scrolling TikTok, YouTube, but they don't get an in-depth conversation. And
Mhm.
then, unfortunately, we become our own worst enemy when we're
Yeah.
trying to fight each other when there are bigger issues at play.
Yeah. That's one of the things we talked about last week a lot was there is such a misunderstanding about DEI, such a misunderstanding. And I emphasize that once people hear and learn that this is going to affect the resources for their children, those who
Right,
were against it, once they really get that understanding, once they tell them, I'm sorry, I'm got to, your son or daughter no longer can receive these services because, we no longer have those funds for it,
right,
it's then they're going to feel it, right? And
right.
one thing that you said, Philip, which was mentioned last week by someone, was the mental health and how
Mhm.
that is misdiagnosed a lot. That was one of the ladies' experience, is that a lot of children are not being diagnosed correctly, misdiagnosed, based upon various reasons. But when you have the resources that DEI can bring to the environment, to the school, to the community, to whatever, then it helps, right?
Right.
And that in return would do what? It would bring down crime and other types of outbursts, because when a child is not diagnosed correctly, then they're going to let it out some type of way, right? Whatever that is going to come out some type of way. Whether you understand why they're, behaving this way, screaming, hollering, or can't no longer want to read, no longer want to participate in school, is something that's going on that if we don't have the staff, if we don't have the resources, they can't get that. So thank you for bringing that up, because we did talk about that last week as well. Martisa, come on down. You're next. Explain to us, why did you want to participate in this book and why this was very important and personal to you?
Hello, everyone. So, as some of the other ladies, y'all have to excuse my voice. I am now just getting into the educational setting field, honestly, but I've been in mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence. I've been in that environment for a long time.
Okay.
And, as getting into the educational field, and as Mr. Phillip there, I also work in a sensitive population, which is special education.
Okay.
And as he said, what I have noticed, and I've been doing some research on it, where it says that the percentage of our Black males who cannot read is pushed through that school to prison pipeline, because the comprehension level, they're not grasping per the school says. Then I'm in the process of, actually, I'll be graduating with my doctoral degree in clinical psychology.
Congratulations.
And so my main target for actually going into that field was to do assessments, because as I heard Mr. Phillips said as well, that misdiagnosed, that underdiagnosed, that overdiagnosed, that label our children for life.
Yeah.
And these parents, not, as you said, not realizing that the DEI, once they take that away, those services are not there anymore. So if you have a child that is diagnosed, then you have to figure out how to deal with that on your own, and that expense may become greatly out of your pocket.
Exactly.
Services that are readily out there, so when they're going against these programs, I think one of the biggest things is because they don't quite understand what the program means or what
exactly
actually does to help them, And so when Miss Dr. Robinson presented this opportunity, I was like, that's a great opportunity for me to jump on, not because of the fact that I can become acknowledged, but because it allows us, as Dr. Phillips said, it allows us from the inside to be able to speak on what truly happens on that inside, And so, and I have to say this because I'm actually taking a class now, which is developmental psychology. So I had to do a discussion question, and my professor came and he gave me an article to read that says where children are misdiagnosed pretty much intentionally so school can continue to receive the funding, which
repeat that again. No, say that again. Repeat that for me, please. Say that again.
Misdiagnosed so so the schools can continue to receive funding, which I think is a big disservice to students overall, but it's a greater disservice to us as being minorities and African Americans, because in my environment where I work at now, majority of my class is minorities, Hispanic, African Americans, of another race, so I feel like that when people don't truly understand something, instead of them asking questions, they jump on the bandwagon or they co-sign other misleaders. And in the end, it hurts them just as much as it hurts other parents when they don't ask those questions.
Wow. Philip, I see you had your hand up, your pen up. Go ahead.
Martisa, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Okay, so just to piggyback off of what she said, just to give you all some context, out of your developed countries in the world, we probably rank at the highest in terms of spending per capita per student. So just to give you some imagery, so to speak, we probably spend on average $11,000 per month per child to sit in a building.
Yes, sir.
Every year.
Yes, sir.
Now, when that child has that IEP, that's an additional $440 on average per child with an IEP. Wow. This is why it was so important that, if you remember, the last time parents and communities had to be held accountable for their kids, we had a pandemic.
Right.
And they couldn't do it.
Right. You're right.
So one of the things I'm understanding is with the DEI, this season, so to speak, is going to force us in these communities who are serious about change to get it done ourselves. Because if you notice, our grandparents didn't need DEI or
Right.
affirmative action,
Right.
right?
Right.
And the biggest beneficiaries for the affirmative action program over the past 50 years are none of us that are on this call.
Right.
Sadly to say, that it's usually either Caucasian women
Yep.
or LGBTQ marginalized subgroups
Right.
or other subgroups within that,
Right.
and we don't benefit from that.
Right.
And I think it's gonna force us to take a hard look at what are we doing as a people
Right.
that we keep becoming a day late and a dollar short.
Mm.
It's spilling out into other areas economically. It's spilling out into, like you said earlier, gender. It's spilling out into the family dynamic. It's spilling out into the fact that now you have parents who don't know how to parent.
Right.
Oh, true.
That's the biggest one.
True.
Right.
True.
So it's a lot of nuances. So I don't want to sit on my soapbox all day, but I know this impacts. When I originally thought about that, just to circle back to what me and Dr. Robinson was talking about, what I really thought about is, well, DEI is just a repackaged affirmative action program. It's an entitlement program just to keep us quiet, just to keep us either mourning too long or celebrating too long.
Right.
But we got work to do.
Right.
Or the conversation that we had last week when we were talking about that portion, somebody brought up how taxing it will be then on the teacher in the classroom. Because now I'm just giving you all perspectives, right? This is what I do, all perspectives. If you take out the resources, you might take out extra assistant in that class, right? Or somebody that's helping with another child that's having, trouble or issues. So now that teacher has to focus on that troubled child, right? With the learning disabilities as well as the classrooms in whole. And they were talking about then that more responsibility, not in a good way, but in a more difficult way, more responsibilities will be put on that teacher, a teacher that cares, right? A teacher that cares about their classroom and their students, of course, is going to gravitate to the child that is struggling in that classroom. But then they were saying that could be overtaxing for the teacher. So is that something that you think is true?
Absolutely true. And I speak on that because that's the situation that I'm in now.
Okay.
And so it does become very challenging when you're in a class in a special education population or even in a gen ed population where you have behaviors in there. It becomes very challenging for a teacher when if your student is in there, say 30 to 45 minutes, but you've spent 25 minutes getting on top of the behavior. So now these other students have lack the what they need to know.
That's
in that
exactly
subject.
what I'm saying.
And just to piggyback off of you, Mr. Phillip, as I heard you speak about the different things, but also add in medication plays a factor in those funding too. The more medication that child is on, the higher that dollar amount becomes.
Yes.
And even if the child is on 1 or 2 medications, the type of medication that they're on increases that dollar amount as well. And what I have found that advocacy when it comes to us is not there. So what they do is they bring these parents in, they read above the parents' head. And so
intentionally, right? Intentionally.
Yeah.
you're gonna give me that help, but the parent really don't understand what's going on.
Right.
Then I also say parenting. I'm an educator, I'm a teacher. I can teach your kid things, but I can't parent your child.
Right.
That's something that from on the outside. And a lot of that is a problem in the schools as well.
Right. So what I shared with them last week is that my mother was a teacher. She retired several years ago. So when I'm hearing some of the reasons why you hear me, spit out some of these scenarios, because I've heard it like my whole life. Certain environments she worked in certain environments, and so that's why I'm able to share. I have no classroom experience, you guys, none whatsoever, but I've heard it all my life, so I understand the struggle of and a passion of a teacher who wants, to see the student grow, the student prosper, but sometimes the environment, is conducive to that child growing. So
Right.
if, for example, if, like I stated, if it's a child in the classroom that's struggling, she was afforded to have assistants in there to sit with that child,
Mhm.
so that the child's not disruptive to the whole classroom, So once again, she don't have to stop teaching
Right.
to, deal with this one kid, because now she has someone that's in there. Dr. Kira, we need you to come on down, because you have been missing in action this whole conversation, and we're having fun, and we want you to play a part. So why did you decide that I have to play a part and participate in this project?
Well, first thing first, I want to say thank you for having me on your platform. This is a honor to be here to speak with you. So once again, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to send a warm thank you and my gratitude to Dr. Heather Robinson for giving me the opportunity to join this project, this collaboration. This is a beautiful thing. And
Yes.
I decided to join because I'm an educator,
Okay.
I'm a counselor,
Okay.
I'm a mother,
I love it.
and I'm also a sister.
Okay.
So I understand from different perspectives. I'm also from understand different perspective the importance of DEI.
Okay.
Like I said, as an educator, as a counselor, I see the shortage
Mm-hmm.
in diversity, inclusion, equity as a counselor and an educator. I just feel like it's not in the forefront like the way it's supposed to. I
Right.
feel like people who suffer from mental illness, substance abuse, children who do have a developmental disability, there's not enough advocacy and program to support their needs. And I can see how firsthand how it impacts their development and how they view the world.
Mm-hmm.
So just to talk about my experience as an educator and the importance of DEI and early child education, it was so perfect for the jump on this because I understand firsthand as an administrator, and I really do want to spur awareness of the importance of DEI in education. Um, I know that we briefly talk about policies that pertain to DEI as pertains to Trump administration changing things.
Yeah.
I know that one thing he is changing. He's taking DEI out of federal institutions like universities, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that impacted programs, that impacted workers.
Yeah.
So one thing that I did put inside my chapter is how does that impact ECE, right? So if you take out DEI higher education, how does that impact people who want to pursue education in ECE? How we are going to get educators inside these programs to teach these children if you've taken away DEI? So
Mm-hmm.
how does the future look for ECE if you're taking out DEI? So I'll talk about it in my chapter because I feel like it's heavily correlated.
Yeah.
Also, too, as I was writing my chapter and embarking on this journey, it completely has changed me as well. I'm going back to school to get my another doctorate in special education,
Okay.
and I'm also in the process to get my license to be an intervention specialist.
Okay.
I'm in the state of Ohio, so we have a pathways for people to come into special education. So I'm working on that right now. So my goal is to be back into the school in August of this year when school start back up. So I'm being prepared, prepare myself to go not only back to school to study, but go back to school to be an intervention specialist. Like I really want to do this hands-on, and I didn't know I was going to get this emotionally about this topic, and I didn't know it was going to push me back into, working with kids. So it has really changed me from personal and and I'm as a mother and educator, so I am very happy of this opportunity.
I love that. I always say that when you when you want to know what your real calling is, just follow your passion. So the fact that you are so
Yes.
passionate about it, that's how you know that's where your gift is, and that's where you need to be. So that's awesome.
Yes.
I think what you all to discuss a little bit more is the lack of understanding from our community, from our country regarding DEI. Like, really, because as I stated, and I will emphasize this over and over again, I don't want to sound redundant, but I think The lack of knowledge, right? People perish because of lack of knowledge, right? Lack of understanding. Sometimes I think it's intentional. Sometimes I think that it's not, right? They just don't get it. Whatever is being, as you said, looks sound bites, right? So whatever they are hearing repetitively, that's what they're going to believe. And so I'm thinking if you can expound more regarding it's not just going to, DEI, some people think of it as being biased, right? When they hear DEI, they think bias. Okay, they don't think it's opportunities for those who are not always afforded these opportunities. And what I have said to people initially, I always said, well, these projects come out, these policies come out because somebody was mistreated, ignored, disrespected, or something like and whenever you hear anything that comes out that's a new policy, somebody either sued, right? Even because I used to work for the state, and a lot of our policies was in place because somebody was mistreated, they felt, or some their the laws was broke for them, and they decided to sue, and that's how new policies come out. So it had to be something that happened that someone said, hey, this person is not being treated equally. And who knew it was going over to the school? Because I don't know. I think people just think that my taxpayer dollars just pay for, everything, but they're not understanding that, DEI is coming in and helping in the school system, and they're not getting that concept. So if you can expound more about some of the resources for those who are in the classrooms or have had experience in the classrooms, expound a little bit more about how you see the resources that this type of service, this type of program brings in that normally they would not just receive. Because we know that normally, if little John couldn't read, in some communities, the parents are able to take little John to an outside source and he can get tutoring because they can afford to do that, right? Where they can have one person one-on-one with him, whether he's getting it in school or not. But if John family cannot afford to send him an outside source, right? Now you have a teacher who said, I'm looking at him and he's not keeping up reading with everybody else. He's struggling in this, and we cannot stop the whole class, right, to give him the assistance that he needs, but yet we don't want him to fall back, right? We don't want him to, because we already know there is a pattern of, we already discussed it, there's a pattern of behavior. Whereas if a kid, we discussed this last week, if they're singled out because they can't read, everybody start laughing and making fun of them in the classroom. They shut down. They no longer want to participate. I don't want to go to school, and then everybody get what they label as a behavior issue, right? Something's wrong with him. It's a behavioral problem. And then he gets on medication because he's gibbering. He don't want to participate. He has a behavior. No, he doesn't have a behavior. He can't read, right? But nobody took the time to see that he couldn't read, because in a lot of classrooms, in public classrooms, the classrooms are extremely full, right? To the max. So no one has that time all the time. Not that it's the teacher's fault. They're human beings. They're not machines, right? So they can't always, take that time out with little John. But then when you get these resources, when you get these programs, then you're able to have a person come in and the teacher can say, hey, look, he's been struggling. This whole group right here has been struggling. Can you pull them to the side? Can you give them that one-on-one? And then they can look and say, well, maybe he do have a issue that we need to address, right? Or maybe he just needs some tutoring and we can take our time and work with him with the tutoring, right? So that's what I'm learning, or have been learning, as I've been listening to you guys, these 2 weeks, about the DEI in the school or the educational system. So can you expound more about what you see regarding the resources that it brings to the school system that would probably, or could, if this was to happen, go away? We'll start with Dr. Robinson.
I can talk about school, but outside of the classroom.
Okay.
Coming up, I got free lunch. One week you had orange lunch tickets, the other one you had blue, purple. They came in all different colors,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so these small resources that people look at as being small, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
either you can or you can't afford to send lunch with your child to school. Whatever your reasoning is,
Right.
this is something really small. I never felt like I didn't belong. Why? Because in the lunchroom, even though I had that lunch ticket, and maybe my friend over there, Philip, might have bought his own lunch. But when we sat together, we both had something to put on our stomach. If you take away the lunch program, now I'm coming to school and he's my friend, and either he feels like he got to share his lunch with me, or he's eating his lunch and I'm sitting there hungry and I got to get through the rest of the day. The one thing I learned as an educator is a hungry child is not going to be productive. And that sounds so small, but a part of the DEI initiative that they're trying to remove, that's a part of it. You know, the school lunch program.
Wait a minute. See, we said this last week briefly, but I really was not sure I was hearing what I was hearing. So you're telling me that the free lunch program is a part of the DEI?
Any program that is added is a part of DEI. So Coach Key talked about those programs we had when we were in school that the kids don't have now. We had gym, we had music, we had shop, and the list goes on and on. A lot of the schools don't offer that anymore.
That's true.
Those were seen as the fun classes that kind of, if you're like me and you don't like math, you look forward to going to school for whatever that extracurricular activity is that you wanted.
Right.
When you take everything away from children, they have nothing to look forward to. Why do we want to go to school? Look at the dropout rates.
Right.
If there's nothing to keep me there, why would I come? That's where you have kids that are what we used to call cutting class.
Yeah.
Now you have kids that just don't go. You got kids that drop out, which you had years ago, but the numbers are different. Kids back in the day used to become emancipated so they could drop out of school without the parent getting in trouble.
Right.
What makes us think that that's not going to happen today?
Right.
So even when you look at it as something that we're in the school building, but we're not in the classroom, and in the classroom, they're already oversaturated.
Yeah.
And Marty, you talked about early childhood education, which goes from pre-K through. In a pre-K classroom, you wouldn't believe how many children with quote unquote behavior issues are in the room, not because they have behavior issues, but because they didn't eat since lunch the day before, or they didn't sleep, or there's things going on at home that we don't know about.
Right.
So when you take away the resources, I used to work at Head Start. They're removing Head Start. Some of the resources Head Start used to give, if you were a battered woman, they got you and your children out of the house and got you in placement within 24 hours. Right. They teamed up with different furniture places to get your place furnished free of charge. They had a free GED program for the parents. Yeah. They had programs that helped you get jobs. All of these programs were free through that particular Head Start program to help the parents go from, I guess, what you would call being dependent to independent.
Right, right.
You remove Head Start, you remove all of these free programs from that demographic and from that area. For some people, that's all they have.
That's true. I didn't even, once again, I not thinking about Head Start and understand that, some people pay to send their children to preschool and Head Start, and those who can't afford it won't be afforded. And that's crazy to me. And what was really crazy to me, to be honest, is hearing certain schools who didn't offer programs like music. I had music. My children had music. But then when I would hear other schools who didn't have music class, I was thrown back, because that's important, right? Because I believe in dealing with the whole person, just like you were saying, as far as dealing with the parent. If you can get the parent to be okay, then the kid can be okay. But if the parent is not okay, they're not working, they're not, productive, they're not self-sufficient, they're struggling, they're hurting, whatever pain that parent is going through, it's going to trickle down to the child, right? So I always believe in the whole person, deal with the whole person, therefore deal with the whole family, right? You got to get to the parent to help the child. So these are resources that you're saying is effective and helpful and is needed. And unfortunately, it does come through the DEI. I was really shocked to hear about the lunch program. I'm being really honest. I didn't understand that until last week. And when you said it again, I'm like, wait a minute. So I did hear what I heard last week, and that's crazy to me. Philip.
But even in the daycares where you might send your child and spend money, there's some daycares that have a program called Pre-K Counts.
Pre-K
Pre-K
counts.
Counts.
Oh,
Pre-K
okay.
Counts.
Pre-K counts. Yes.
That's a program where from the hours of 9 to 3, if you financially qualify, you don't have to pay for childcare between those hours. So if your child is there from 9 to 5, you only pay from the hours of 3 to 5, which makes childcare a lot more affordable because infant right now might be about $550 a week in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
For
Unfortunately,
full-time care.
people who do not have those type of financial struggles can't relate. So it's not of interest to them. That's the facts. They have never had to worry about child care or anything like that. So when we speak about things like that, they do not relate, they do not understand. And this is when it becomes that, looking at certain races. That's when it becomes, a whole nother issue because everybody does not understand that sometimes people have to work and there's no family members to help, or they can't afford to pay for their mortgage, their lights, their gas, their water, their car, their food, and then childcare. What you said now is costing an arm and leg because, as you know, that's one of the programs they do want to get rid of. I know here for sure they want to get rid of that too as well. Philip, what has been your experience regarding DEI, regarding the importance of it and the resources that it has brought in the classrooms, or just even in the contact that you've had with the youth and how important that is?
I guess I see it from a different perspective.
I love different perspectives. Let's hear it.
For me, a lot of people, well, from my own experience, people misconstrue what DEI is, and they try to tag on this whole nomenclature of being woke, right?
Yeah.
And what they don't understand is when we get so caught up in the race or the gender or the religion
Mm-hmm.
or the what is it, the citizenship status, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We miss the whole point of the commonalities that we have
Mm-hmm.
as people. Because I remember coming up, my mom was a kindergarten teacher in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And so she didn't have, I mean, in the inner cities, if any of you are familiar with teaching in the inner cities, your groups usually look more homogenous than anything. All I've taught as with Title I schools.
Mm-hmm.
And most of those schools were usually black and brown children.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a white child, he grew up around black kids. So, the culture is a lot different because somewhere innately we still have this sense of community,
Mm-hmm.
even though we don't articulate it like we probably should these days.
Yeah.
And with DEI, a lot of the things that you see, and now it's gotten to the point where they're forcing your hand on not having these principles in place, because
Mm-hmm.
as an educator, I can't take a child home if they miss the bus.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pay for a child's lunch ticket if they're in the negative,
Mm-hmm.
and these are things that are frowned upon, and they say, well, what does it look like? If you had a child, and see, my thing has always been, if you do right by the student and their parents, you won't have these issues. because you've developed a rapport, and it's bigger than just teaching. It's bigger than just sitting in that classroom, because at the end of the day, I'm looking at it through the lens of, when I get too old to defend myself, these are the people who may have to take care of me.
Exactly.
And so what happens is, when you take away a lot of these projects, and if we take a deeper dive into it, a lot of these programs were gone well before this administration and the last administration. They stopped doing vocational programs in high school probably in the 90s.
Wow.
The set aside, and one of the things, respect to everybody who has their doctorate or getting their doctorate. I quit my doctorate just off of this principle alone, because when I found out that through the research that special education funds get redistributed back to other areas of the school. And so then when you're asking for an IA or a teacher assistant, or you're asking for just a basic minimum student to teacher ratio, and then they're trying to stuff more kids in your special ed classroom to look like a gen ed classroom, and they're not adhering to the principles of the IEP. That's what's causing a lot of these teachers every year to leave in the droves of 70 to 80% every year.
Wow.
And now you're hiring people who either don't want to teach, who can't teach, or some combination of the two.
Wow.
So
the quality is being compromised for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Oh,
unless you're going to, I guess I look at it like this: unless you're going to teach your child yourself, then you got to be honest with yourself and say, "Am I capable of doing it?" Yeah. Half of these parents can't stand their kids now. They can't get their kids to clean their room. Right. So I know they can't get their kids to read a book for 20 minutes.
Right. It's crazy that a teacher will have more influence over your child than you do. I was a caseworker for some years, and I was, my kids are grown now, thank God. But I was, a very stern mom. So, I would have kids touch my stuff on my desk, and I would just look at them, and the parents would go, "You better stop, Miss Cook. Carl's gonna get you, Miss Cook." I said, "Why would you want them to be more afraid of me than you? You should have been teaching them that at home, so that when they get here, they know how to behave, And it's unfortunate, but my mom used to make a joke about kids would call your mom, because as a teacher, because she spent so much time with them and nurture them and love on them so much that they, are drawn to that love, right? That protection. And sometimes they would say mom by mistake. Ooh, I'm sorry, but they just call her mom. Right. But she's that disciplinarian, and she's that love, she's that respect, all in a package that they might not be seeing at home. Right.
Well, kids crave structure. Kids crave discipline.
I agree.
If you look at your school systems now, a lot of it is entertainment. Yeah. A lot of it is just, let's push what's trending or what's in vogue so that people can feel good about themselves.
Yes. Yes.
I was probably perhaps the worst elementary school, or probably the worst kid, because I wanted to be the class clown growing up, But one thing I was scared of, I was still scared of my mother. A lot of kids don't fear their parents anymore.
They don't. So how are they going to respect somebody else if they can't even respect their parent? Right. It's crazy to me that another adult, that would tell you, you ought to be afraid of this adult. What? Right. What? I never would want my kid to be more afraid of anybody, because that's too much influence. That's too much power that you didn't give this other person over your child. No. Right. Yeah, the discipline has to start at home first. I agree 100%. Martisa, you over there, please come join the conversation and explain to us, some experiences that you've had, and when it comes to, if it's outside the classroom, but yet still in a community environment, and how you see, the danger of this being kind of removed. Because once again, I just don't think people understand the impact. It's just about resources is what I'm learning. It's about resources that other communities have, because sometimes they can afford to have, And it's not always equal, right? It's not
Right.
always shared like it should be shared. And sometimes we become selfish and we figure, no, 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 but in the end, these children are going to grow up and they're
Right.
going to be the leaders. They're going to be the ones, as Philip said, going to be the ones taking care of us. So we need them to be able to experience and get all the resources and helps that they can get so that we don't have a lot of kids that are growing up struggling. Anxiety among the youth is crazy. When I was a kid, I didn't know what anxiety was. Come on, let's be honest. I had no idea when I was a teenager what anxiety was, but
Right.
my kids was talking about people bringing in support animals and struggling with anxiety and all these issues that are going on, with our youth. There's a real problem that
Oh,
is happening, right? And then instead of helping it, they want to start taking it apart, the resources and the help that can be there for them, afforded to them. And
right.
it's really sad. But go ahead and join the conversation and let me know. Let us all know what did you see?
And so I do have to piggyback off of Dr. Robinson and Mr. Phillip
Okay.
about the resources that are there that has been removed, such as, me when I was in school, as Dr. Robinson said, you had these extracurricular activities that they have now pulled back on, or you get these, I call them check chasers.
Okay.
Robinson said, hey, you here
Y'all
because
taught me something today because I sure did never heard of that either.
you're here because one, you really don't want to do the job, but hey, it's an easy job. Because if I can sit in a classroom with 19, 23 kids and give them a piece of paper and say, hey, trace this, color this, I'm for the day, But really, what is happening with that kid? So when they remove these resources, such as he said about the lunch program, how many kids do we know when they leave school every day, that is the last meal they had till they come back the next day?
Yes,
Right.
So as a teacher, as a mother, as an aunt, as a grandmother, I keep things in my drawer, crackers and Pop Tarts and things like that. Because if a student come to me and say, Miss Smith, I'm hungry, I'm pulling my drawer, but what is it that you want out of here? Because I do agree that a hungry child cannot focus.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I'm trying to teach this kid and there's behaviors and this kid is becoming physical and they're crying and they're doing other, why, why is it like this? So the first thing come to mind for me is, are you hungry? That's my question. Then I start checking other areas to see what's going on, and I do have to agree, when you have a parent that lack the knowledge, and as Mr. Phillips said, sometimes it's because they don't want to know, because they feel like if I choose not to learn, somebody's going to pick up the pieces for me,
Yeah.
But what is it about you, the parent, holding yourself accountable, because my child has to be that next president or whatever the case may be. As a mother, my teaching started in my home as a mother. But my children went to private school and then later went to public school. They were at the top notch. My baby boy, all three of my boys, the smartest kid I have. Like I tell my kids, you have the same as everybody else out there. I don't care what color they are. Opportunity. Get out there. But when you don't push your kid for that opportunity, they feel like, I can't get it.
Yeah.
That's not how I raise my kids. That's not how I raise my grandkids. I told them, I say, you just as good as the next person.
That's right.
But when we as a parent, we fail to embrace the resources that are provided because while we're ashamed, or I don't want nobody to know I'm receiving assistance.
Right.
Guess, as a working person, and all of us on here work, you paying into.
Right.
Why not? Why not those resources? Just the other day, because I work in the sensitive population, as Mr. Phillip has, in special education, there are different types of grants that they give, those students. So not only do I send the papers home, I literally took a screenshot and texted out to my parents, because you cannot imagine how many of my parents do not check my baby's folders. So I sent it to a screenshot. You know why? Because a cell phone is attached to their hip and their hand, like they go to sleep with it in their hand.
Right.
I'm sending this out, you're gonna see it. So I sent it out to a couple of parents, and I had parents instantly said, I'm on it right now because the funds go so fast.
Yeah.
I have parents out there, oh, I'm not gonna apply for that. Why not?
Right.
Why not?
Right.
It's not saying that you are less than because you apply for that resources, but you're helping your child because that's who it's for. Embrace it. Because when they remove these resources, then I want to hear the conversation of why not?
Right.
Because now the resources are not even there, you know?
Right.
And so it actually saddens me and breaks my heart to see how when these resources are available, we don't take the initiative to to embrace them, or, you know, take on that, hey, I'm gonna get this resource regardless, because, you know, when it's gone, it's gone. You know, like
Right.
the saying is, you can't miss something you never had, honestly.
Right.
And when you don't accept these resources, how can you complain when you never had it? That's just like telling the person, hey, go vote.
Right.
And when you don't go vote, they put someone in there that's coming in and
Don't complain.
taking all. How can you complain about
You
it?
can't, because you didn't do your part.
Right. You know, I tell people, a closed mouth never get fed.
Never. Right.
And if you can't speak for yourself as an adult, and if there's no disability that's preventing you from doing it,
Right.
how can you expect somebody on your behalf?
Right.
Because you have to be willing to step up and say, you know what, as much as I want this, or much as I don't want it, I'm gonna let my voice be heard. Like I tell you, I have a big mouth. I'm sorry. And my mouth is heard, you know, when it gets to that certain point. You know, as I tell people, I work in special education. I have 10 students in my classroom. I am my students' voice. So I advocate for my students, you know, and not only for the students that I teach, I advocate for any child in my presence.
Yes.
You know, kid come up to me and say, Miss Smith, I'm hungry. I'm gonna feed that child. Because again, I don't know what is the last time that baby had a meal. Right. You know, if we lack to take initiative to welcome in the resources that are there. When they're gone, what's the need of complaining? Right. And that's what we don't hear a lot of talk. Yeah. Oh, they don't offer lunch anymore. They don't offer this. Because I remember there was a time when when I didn't even qualify for free lunch for my kids. So I was paying for lunch out of my pocket, you know. So now that the free lunch is there, and all my babies are out of school at this point. But now that the schools now have it to where lunches are free and breakfasts are free, you have people who will not take on that and accept it. It's always a complaint. And I'm like, why complain if there's a resource that's going to benefit you in the long haul? You know, as I tell people, noodles are not a meal. You have a kid leave here and they go home and they eat a pack of noodles. That is not
right.
You know, so why not accept these resources? You know, especially in the school districts, because if you go back and count back decades ago, a lot of things they offer now in school they didn't offer then.
No.
And for them to come and remove it again, making it back one of those what is it called, marginalized, and I'm probably mispronouncing it, but you know, one of those type of schools where we have to. We're in competition for everything now, you know, and you have parents who really cannot afford to not have free lunch, but yet say they won't stand up and speak. Yeah. They wait for the next person to stand up and speak. Yeah. So that means if I send my baby to school with $2 and he come home and say, Grandma or Mama, my friend be at school hungry. Now I'm sending them to school with $4 because I want your friend to eat. Right. You know,
we need more like you. We need more people, teachers, educators just like you. That's right. What we need. We need more of that inside our classrooms, touching our children. And what you're doing is you're educating the parents. Right. Whether you because sometimes there's a taboo attached to some resources, right? We have this fake pride that is weird, but we do. But when it comes to our children, we need to put that to the side and do what is best for our children. So we need more people like you inside the classrooms who are not only educating the children, but you telling the parents, hey, listen, let me tell you something. You need to put that to the side because this is what your child needs and this is how they can get it. Right. And that's what we need to be doing all together as a community, regardless of what it is. Sometimes when we see stuff and we say, I'm just going to mind my business. Right. But no, we need to, in a very respectful and loving way, educate one another when we can. When we see something, hey, did you know that this resource was out there for you? Did you know that you can, this is for you? This is something that's for everybody that you could just sign up for. Stop harboring, information that, we could be sharing with one another. And then we need to learn to accept it. Okay, stop acting like you so prideful or whatever with things and whatever. Accept that information, accept that resource, accept whatever is needed, especially when it comes to benefiting your child. So kudos to you. You're doing you're doing a great job, and I appreciate that because we need more teachers like you in our classrooms because it's obvious to me just listening to you, you love those kids.
Oh,
And
I do it.
you do. And look, the drawer let me know, the drawer full of goodies, that right there let me know you a good teacher. Nobody's
I,
leaving your classroom hungry, okay?
at all, you know, and I find it becomes second nature for me when I'm in the grocery store, grocery shopping, where I
Mm.
go down the aisles and I just start grabbing things that I separate it out in my basket. I'm like, this is for my babies at school and this is for the house. And when I come home, my grandkids are like, well, grandma, who is that for? And I'm like, this for my babies at school. Don't touch it. It's like, feed them
I
better.
love that. I love that. Every year I used to watch my mom. She would make a whole corner in her class for her kids to calm down and
Right,
relax, right? She had like all these pillows they could sit down and read and relax. And she would play
yeah,
classical music, right? And she just wanted them to relax and calm. And she was teaching them something they didn't even know they was being taught, right?
right,
How to just relax, calm
right,
that down and relax and find you a peaceful moment, right? Because they might not get that anywhere else at any other
right.
time. But in her classroom, there was a time that as long as you was doing what you need to do, she could send you over there that corner and you could just get your book, your little pillows, and just she said sometimes they would fall asleep. They'd be so comfortable. She'll let them do it too, because obviously they need that rest. But
Oh, yeah,
that's what I'm talking about, impacting our youth in a good and positive. And they come back and see her years and years and years later on. They was grown and had their own kids, and they was bringing them back to see her. That's what you know you guys are doing, and that's what's impactful. Kira, can you please join the conversation? Because we're concluding now. We need to hear what you need to. Oh, she got the baby. She got the baby with her. Look, she full time. Okay, teacher, educator, mom. She doing it all.
Listen,
Wearing
this
all
school
the
runs
hats.
my life, but I'm here.
Wearing all the
um,
hats, mom. I love it. So we're going
yes,
to be, closing this up, but we definitely want to hear your part, regarding the resources and what's going to happen or could happen once they take that out of the class.
absolutely, absolutely. As an educator, two Bible resources that I have seen in my program that help parents,
Mm-hmm.
families and children tremendously is Help Me Grow program
Mm-hmm.
and also to preschool program. Help Me program in the state of Ohio is a program where a certified specialist will either they need to come to your child care center or they can go to the parents' home directly,
Mm-hmm.
and they can provide interventions for children before the age of 3 who got developmental disability, so they
Okay.
won't be too delayed in school. So they help them with fine motor skills, gross motor skills,
Mm.
identify their numbers or letters. So it's really for birth to 3 to really screen for developmental disabilities early. So
Okay.
when they do get to K, they're not so before behind and they already got an IEP set in place.
Wow.
That is very to me resourceful to families, because a lot of
Yes.
times they don't know their child have a developmental disability
Mm-hmm.
until they hit kindergarten. So
Right.
just to have the opportunity to know that between the ages of birth to 3 that your child might have a possibility of disability, right?
Right.
And we
Right.
can intercede on your behalf and get them the resources and tools before they hit K. You know what? That not only is that a stress off the parents, but that also maximizes the child growth potential going to school. Um, so if that was to be taken away because of DEI or because of budget cutting,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of children are going to go on screen who got developmental disability delays. And, parents don't have the resources or the money to really to get the help that they need.
Right.
So that can hinder children between the ages of birth to 3 growth. That will be very detrimental to the community. Also, to Preschool Promise, as I mentioned before, that is a program that's in the state of Ohio that allocates more money to a provider, right, who
Mm-hmm.
offer childcare to teach ECE, to teach preschool program, right? So they give them extra money per child. They give them also to like books,
Mm-hmm.
markers, crayons, that the children can take home,
Mm-hmm.
science. So it's extra funding that make that preschool program what it is. So if that was to be taken away, that would completely destroy the preschool system inside of child care home programs. So I do think they are viable, and if they were to be dismantled, um, I would definitely see a delay in children development in the future.
That's really good. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, what you're saying is very, very helpful to parents. And once again, they won't know until it's gone, right? And then they're gonna
Yeah,
start
they don't know.
they're gonna
And
start
it's sad.
hollering about it then, saying,
Yes,
wait a minute. No, no, no. This is what y'all
absolutely.
wanted. So, but yeah, because sometimes even your doctors don't pick up, right? Some of
They
these
don't.
developmental issues and so the teachers and those educators can pick these things up that even your
Absolutely.
physician cannot pick up.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great program. I thank you
Yes,
for
it
sharing that.
is. It is. It is.
Yeah.
And I saw firsthand as an educator how I helped my children develop. Like they had the delay, but they're not that far off. They help to get
Right.
caught up. And
Yeah.
just to piggyback off of the conversation earlier
Mm-hmm.
with Dr. Heather and
Mm-hmm.
Philip,
Mm-hmm.
how they mentioned the discontinuation of trade school,
Mm-hmm.
trade programs in school way before me. You know,
Yeah.
um,
I had
when I got
shop.
to high
I had shop
school,
in grade school. Shop.
yeah. When I went to high school, that's when it was kind of discontinued at that point, But the
Mm-hmm.
generation before me, like they were graduating high school like with their cosmetology license, being
Mm-hmm.
plumbers. They don't have that now. So
Yeah.
with that being said, what is the future for them from an economic standpoint, from a career standpoint?
Right.
How they going to make it in this world, not only in ECE, but when they pass high school, So I think it starts with ECE, but it's
Mm-hmm.
beyond ECE because these children are the future,
Yeah.
and they don't have, not only are we losing fun in ECE, but there's no more trade when they get to high school. So where do we leave the future?
Right.
Everyone don't want to go to traditional college, but
Right.
they no
Yes,
longer have that
exactly.
trade. Yeah, they no longer
Exactly.
have a trade where you can be a hairstylist, or you can be a plumber, be an electrician. Those trades and licenses can make more money than somebody sitting in a class than a principal. Real, I
Yeah.
mean, real. And I think it's just so sad that it has been dismantled and discontinued in our nation. And hopefully in the future we can see that it be brought back because I'm a big supporter of trades. A big
Yeah, I
supporter.
hope that comes back more too, to be honest, because I've
Absolutely.
heard 1,000 times that because I just recently finished my master's, right? It was a thing that I really needed to do for myself. I wanted to do, and I did in 2020. And my kids was like, "What is wrong with you? Why would you intentionally go back to school when you don't have to?" It just didn't make no sense to them. They did not. They didn't understand that at all. And a lot of young people now are saying, "You all go in there, spending all those years there. I cannot take it. It's too long." And my daughter one time, she was counting the years. Wait a minute, it takes that many years? Nowhere in the world. I want to do that. So it's not for everybody, right? And that's something we have to take consideration. And so what you want to do is find out what they really want to do and what they're good at and what they're passionate about, that maybe they can get that's not inside of a 4-year degree university. So that's awesome. I thank you for sharing that. That was really good information.
Absolutely.
Coach Key, let's hear you, Coach Key. Come on, let's end it off and let us know your work and how you see this being impactful in the work that you're doing. And if it's gone, what happens?
Well, I agree with what everyone said. I was a part of that generation that we had the cosmetology programs and the shop programs and all that, and I graduated as recent as 2006, which is 20 years ago. But don't tell nobody.
Girl,
Um,
that's nothing. Stop.
but my alma mater school still has some of those programs, thankfully. But I do come from a very small town, very country town in Texas. So some of the stuff does hold true. But with me living in Houston, I'm seeing it every day with working with different people who are teachers, working with different organizations. I'm seeing it every single day. They're pulling all kind of stuff out. There's a program that they actually had brought in about maybe 3 years ago, right after COVID, excuse me, that allowed if you had a business or if you had a particular skill as a normal person, you can go in a school and be what's the teacher called where it's not a sub, but
Assistant.
no, it's not an assistant.
Come on,
It
educators, let us know because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have
what
no
is
idea.
the
Are you
teacher
talking
who
about an apprentice?
A,
no, huh?
a paraprofessional.
Apprentice?
No, it's another word. I can't think of it, but they will be able to go in from Monday through Thursday to whatever their craft was. If they were gardeners, if they were cosmetologists, if they were singers, whatever their craft was, they were able to go into the school and they would pay them $20, $30 an hour, and they can work up to like 7 hours a week. And I had one of my friends, sorry, 7 hours a week. They could work up to 7 hours a day, 4 days a week. So I had a couple of friends who was doing that, and that's how they were actually making their money and also being able to push their craft, also being able to teach those kids. And then they just slowly started cutting them out. So I kind of knew something was happening when that took a big change because it was in all of the schools that was in Houston, that was considered to be Houston. They actually called it a dyad program. And if you guys can research that on your own, where you can apply and do all of these things, but it it hurt a lot of kids because literally those programs were the reasons kids were going to school. I'm going to school to learn how to meditate. I'm going to school to learn how to grow my own food in a garden, right? And it wasn't something that was open to everybody. You had to be selected and chosen, almost like the gifted program. You had to be selected and chosen, and they're slowly pulling that out. So there's a lot of, we have kids every single day that are overdosing on drugs in these schools.
Wow.
That we get calls, because we do fashion shows with kids as well. So we are very actively involved with those kids. And luckily, the ones that we actually know are doing well, but their friends are dying at a rapid rate because
Yeah.
they have nowhere to pull their energy. They don't have anything to do with their time. So the fact that, like they said, they're hungry, they aren't being challenged, they aren't creative enough, they don't know how to read, they're frustrated, and you had programs that was teaching them how to manage all of those things.
Right.
And so when they finally pulled that last one out, what then are you going to do when you have a large amount of children, no matter the age, the race, or whatever background upbringing, who are frustrated, and they're going to start taking it out on somebody. And who is the first person that they're going to take it out on? It's going to be, I hope it doesn't, but it's probably going to be the people at those schools, because they see you're the reason
Right.
why I am feeling this way. You're the
Right.
reason why this is happening, right? So I feel like it's going to be a conversation starter.
It is.
It may be a slight uproar,
Yeah.
but I feel like if you stop now and maybe, who knows? I try to kind of be optimistic. Maybe this is a test. Maybe they're doing it for a reaction because it's a distraction from something, right? So maybe they'll put it back in. Maybe. Who knows?
Someone said last week it's not gonna happen. They don't feel like, they feel like once it starts, they will rebrand it. Same program, same thing, but it'll be rebranded under another name.
It could be because a lot of businesses and nonprofit, with the businesses that I work with, the nonprofits, the skills that they offer, they're getting their money from that. Right? They're getting the money, the funds that are not going to the schools to do all of this, it's going to the nonprofits so that they can do it outside of the schools. So it could be
that's a
something
good
that
angle. That's a good angle.
it could be something that is a non-controlled environment, because
Philip
if
been
you're in
over
the
here
school,
burning.
oh, I'm sorry. If
No,
you're
no, no, no. No, sorry
you're
to
good.
you. I'm just saying, once you're done, we're gonna let Philip, because Philip been over here just burning to say.
I do feel like it is kind of swaying in that energy, because again, if you think about it, in a school, it's to control. But if it's my nonprofit, I control it.
Okay.
You can't tell me what to do with my kids over here in Youth Elevated.
True.
You can tell me what to do in your school time, in your school hours.
True.
But when I take them to my community, you can't tell me what I can show them, right? So it could be that type of angle that we don't know. But yeah, so that's it. Go ahead.
We're gonna find out really soon.
Oh,
Philip, you got something. I know you got something that you want to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, we could probably sit on this all night, but
Okay.
But I was going to just say, have a question and a statement, really.
Okay.
And it was something I was doing a proposal for a community support company earlier today, and when this same topic came up, coincidentally, and I was telling them, I said, look, I want to And the point that I made is this: collectively, and I think it's safe to say in here, is that we need more warriors. Everybody's not a king and a queen. And so we have to understand that what is our vested interest moving forward, because nobody's coming to save us. Okay. And so we have to understand, okay, so if I'm an educator and I truly care about the kids that I serve, that means I have to care about the parents of these kids as well. I also have to care about their circumstances, and I have to empathize what their backstory is. A lot of educators are not doing that. So my question, the last part of the question is, as we identify these issues that take place, this may be a blessing in disguise. But my question to everybody would be, what is your ministerial obligation moving forward? So that's what you have. It has to be bigger than just the convenience of, I'm in the school system and it's for the kids. The kids will always be fine based off of the state, right? But what is your ministerial obligation? What is the one thing that you'll do for these kids that you don't mind not getting paid for?
Right.
And that's going to be, my prayer is that's going to be the focus, whether it's this administration, the next administration, and so forth. Because let's be real, what has the Black church said about this?
Well, it hasn't been the schools for sure. They have not brought up the children at all.
Well, and remember, the focus of the church in our communities prior to integration was to be the cornerstone.
Yeah.
Right.
We were supposed to create our own churches and our own schools so that we can give these kids a sense of identity, to where they don't go into a place feeling marginalized all the time. And then when you take out curriculum such as critical race theory and stuff like that, my thing was that makes no difference here or there, because it's my responsibility as a parent to teach my children the identity of my children.
That's true.
So I guess it's a shameless plug. A good resource would be Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power.
That's a good one.
That and the Awakening, the Genius of Black Children by Amos Wilson's are good references too. So
I was gonna put my hand up. I just say this.
Yeah, go ahead.
As much as we don't like, even though this is not a solely a Black issue, we just so happen to be all Black people, right? I feel like the entire Black community really does owe Dr. Umar Johnson an apology. He's been saying this for years.
Yes.
You said the entire. I know Umar Johnson.
They owe him an apology. They have.
I 100% agree, because they have drugged them. They was dragging his name in there.
You're saying she don't owe him an apology because she was with him the whole time.
No.
I supported as well. But
I know him, and
I
so
understand what you're saying, Coach Keith.
When you go to school with somebody and you watch their beginning stages, like I was at Temple in undergrad, he was working on his doctorate. They're even saying he doesn't have a doctorate in psychology. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Clinical psychology. He has a doctorate in it.
Yeah.
He went to Temple.
Yeah.
But my thing is, even beyond that, we have to get past being so quick to drag somebody because they say something that either we don't agree with, that we don't understand, or that makes us uncomfortable.
Right.
And I've been talking about this for months. Yeah. Like, they drag him for the stuff that he says because of who he is.
Yeah.
And that's been something, even when I was a part of the Philadelphia chapter of the UNIA and ACL, which is right in North Philadelphia, around the corner from Temple. He was the president of that chapter. We used to have meetings, and I mean, people would come in droves just to try to attack him. Like, it wasn't a physical attack, but it was a verbal attack.
Right.
And so it's something that we really, as a people, need to stop doing that. And that's a part of our problem. When we just look at the Black community as a whole, that's a part of our problem. We're so quick
The drag.
to cut people off. We're so quick
Yeah.
to cut people down. We're so
Yeah.
quick
Yes.
to kind of blackball people, if you will. We don't look at the full picture.
Right.
And one thing that drew me to Philip when we had our first conversation is not being a yes, sir, yes, ma'am person,
Right.
but doing the research for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we don't learn to do that and we're just going off these sound bites, as he calls them,
Mm.
we're never going to get anywhere. We, in my opinion, we have not come far at all. We think we have.
I
We
agree.
stuck.
Because overt became covert, but it's overt again as history is constantly repeating itself. And like when you talked about Dr. Amos Wilson, he's another one that was slandered because of the stuff that he spoke about and the stuff that he wrote about. But if people would have taken the time to actually hear what he was saying and process it without looking at who he is because of what he stood for, people just, same thing with Dr. Umar and a lot of other people. It's the same. They did the same thing. If we would stop doing that and we would take the time to actually listen instead of listening to react, but listen for understanding.
Yeah.
Because we're so quick to want to have that get back, that snap back,
Right.
and don't know nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's more entertaining.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
But
it's gotten to a point where the only thing we're drawn to nowadays, especially with social media post-COVID, is how dysfunctional can men and women be in our
Right.
families? How
this is
dysfunctional can our families be?
yes.
Yeah. Because
Without
they get
that,
paid for
it's
that.
not
They get paid for showing that type of behavior. It's very profitable. You know, the more out crazy dysfunctional behavior you can show on social media, the more profitable it is right now in our society. They get paid for that. You understand? I mean,
but
they
you don't see
clicking
any
it.
other group doing that, though. You don't see any other group doing that. And unfortunately, the few leaders that do want to step up, they get assassinated in their character first before they physically become assassinated. And that's
Yeah.
why I say everybody ain't a king or a queen. We need more warriors.
Yeah.
Just like spiritually, we need and this is just my faith.
Right.
Okay.
God doesn't need more churches. He needs more disciples.
I agree.
I agree.
He doesn't need another building.
You better say that.
So with that, what is, again, if you look at the Black's Law Dictionary, a ministerial obligation is a legal term that tells you you have an ethical and you have a spiritual obligation to your fellow man.
Mm-hmm.
Not to just do right, but to be righteous in doing so.
Right.
Right.
And that's what we got to get back to, in my opinion.
Well, thank you all. This has been so good, y'all. I mean, I told y'all once we get started, it's gonna get started. It's hard to pull back, ain't it? I know. I get it. It was good conversation. But look, let me leave this with you. I agree with you, Philip, 100%. And I think it's time that we get uncomfortable. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the greatest sermons that my mom ever preached was the eagle stirs the nest, right? And it's just that when it's time for us to soar, time for us to fly and be independent and be strong, the mother eagle began to make that nest uncomfortable, putting things in there that's no longer soft and comfortable for that eaglet, so that eaglet can come out that nest and begin to fly. So instead of us, this is a great start. This book, I absolutely love the book, and each and every one of you all that I have had the opportunity to meet and speak with, you guys are pretty awesome. I'm going to tell you, like I told last group, you're pretty awesome. You're pretty great, and I'm so grateful to be able to connect with each and every one of you all. And I see why I had to chose you all. You guys got a great background, a great story, and passion for what you do, and passion for what you believe in. And so it's been my honor and it's been my pleasure to have you on Renewed Mind Revolution podcast. So thank you guys for joining us here. I am your host, Michelle Kakal. I love you, but most importantly, God loves you more. God bless you guys. And thank you, Dr. Heather Robinson, and look forward to her book coming out with these wonderful group of people on April the what?
25th.
25th. And it will be available where?
This you're going to actually order from us individually.
Okay. So she's gonna get that information, and when she do, whatever podcast I have, I will remember to share with my listeners where you can get that book from, because this is something you don't want to miss. I'm gonna pray for you guys the success of this book, and that it will be heard from those that needs to hear it, and that more platforms will be open up to you guys, and maybe you even be on the media, okay, TV, and sharing this information, because I think it's important and that is very impactful. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for joining.
Michelle,
Yes, ma'am.
I gotta plug this in
She
because
want to
I could
plug? Go ahead and
I could
plug.
feel Coach Key eyes just beaming over here. So I'm gonna plug this in.
Okay, she's beaming at you. Go ahead.
We we are having a in-person conference on Saturday, June 28th. That will
Okay.
be in Exton, Pennsylvania. More information to come. That will be on all of our social medias. I'll give Michelle the information. It'll also be on websites.
Okay. So they have an in-person event coming up soon in June. So we will get that information out to you as well. As soon as Dr. Heather Robinson gets it to me, I will give it up to my listeners. And once again, thank you guys for joining me. I hope you had a great time. I had an awesome time. And I thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you guys. Have a great evening.